Hello and welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. It's great to be here with you all, and of course, I'm here, as always, to do the same thing I always do, which is to talk about mind-body symptoms. So the first thing I like to do is to talk about what that is. Of course, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. This channel is something that I created years after I got better from 8 years of chronic, every day, every single moment back pain, and I had no sense that I was going to get out of it. And I also had no real idea of what mind body symptoms were. At the time, I had some idea of the term psychosomatic, but even I had the wrong idea about that as a therapist. And that idea that I had was it was in my head. Well, as it turns out, nothing's in your head. However, there are things that can happen within your mind and within your brain that can become very real and activated in the body. And that ultimately was what was happening in my back, but I had no idea. And this was back in this started in 2003. And from that period, it was a really barren time compared to now in terms of what people know about this. So we've come a long way since that time, which is great. But at the time, I had no idea, and no one knew about this guy named Dr. Sarno. Dr. John Sarno wrote 4 books, and he also pioneered a lot of a treatment and a lot of different kind of treatment protocols to get people better initially from back pain, and then that got extended to other things. Well, he is a great hero to me for multiple reasons, but if I hadn't been told about one of his books, I easily and probably would still be in pain today. That scared me to know that, and it made me think, you know what? Now that I'm better, I need people to know about this. The most striking thing about it for me was that it was all science and logic. I thought, okay, well, getting better, within a short period of time after an 8-year time of having symptoms always. That sounded like voodoo to me, but it was all science and logic. I just had the wrong understanding of it. And what that meant is I was staying in a fear-based mindset. And that fear-based mindset was just channeling down throughout my body, mostly into my back at the time, but I was having other symptoms too. Looking back on it, I've had mind-body symptoms my whole life. It's the human condition. We all do. So we're going to talk about these symptoms where whatever's going on in your mind, your feelings and your thoughts can change things in your body. But I developed a system from reading Sarno and from understanding my own experience and what I needed to control my symptoms, because Sarno only got me part of the way there. I started a system based on my understanding of what leads to these symptoms. And one thing that I found is that the mind body community generally talks about these things as if emotions cause symptoms, which they do in part. But what I found is that they didn't always cause the symptoms. They cause the onset and upticks of symptoms. That initial moment, or let's say you're having a symptom and then it goes way up, that is usually driven by an unconscious emotion that you didn't want to know about, and the symptom is there to distract you. Well, that is something that I turned into something called the emotions column. Let me talk about the columns for a second. I developed this column system based on the organization I had in my mind. I discovered that emotions played a role, but then I also found my thoughts all by themselves played a big role, especially in cementing the symptoms that just stayed there. And that made a lot of sense to me because emotions are always changing. So are your thoughts, but not always, because my thoughts about my back never changed. Not at all. The thought was, I'm not going to get better. I have no reason to know why this is happening. I have no reason to expect to get better. All of those thoughts stayed the same. So something has to be staying the same for your body to be staying the same. Some might say, oh, maybe it's a structural issue. But as it turns out, all of those structural issues that we thought were causing the pain have been debunked. Herniated discs don't cause back pain. I was blown away when I found studies, and the only studies that weigh in on this are all on this side, that arthritis doesn't actually cause pain. It's incidental. All of these structural things that we started looking at in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, they turn out to be incidental to pain. And this is how all symptoms actually work. They're not very based on the structures of your body. They are much more based on what's going on in your brain. And we have countless studies of all kinds that show that this is true. So you got your emotions column for onsets and upticks and symptoms, where the symptom is there to distract. You have the doubt column. The doubt column is where your thinking stays in the same place. That leads to those seemingly chronic conditions. And then there's the power column. The power column is about your relationship with you, and that is used to break through symptom plateaus when people are getting better, but then they kind of get stuck. That's usually about some kind of conflict with the self, especially around being powerful. I discovered this totally by accident because when I got better from the back pain and my doubt was way down and I was looking at my emotions in the right way, I started to feel really powerful. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty amazing change in my life because I hadn't felt very powerful before. I can tell you that. And what I realized is, oh, I don't have to, people don't just have to wait around to become powerful. They can use that. And as I started to use it, I actually found there was a direct and important way to use that. So these three columns are the way that we go through and understand these different symptoms and what they mean. Now, why do I have this Q&A? Well, when I read Sarno, I had lots of questions even after reading that. I had tons of questions before, even more, but I wasn't getting anywhere. With Sarno, I started to get somewhere, and then I had lots of questions. And what I found is if you're going to break through doubt, you have to have your questions answered to your satisfaction. That's what this Q&A is for. I'm here to answer your questions to your satisfaction. And if I don't, which happens fairly regularly, I mean, I do my best, and a lot of times I do nail it right away. But if I don't, just ask the follow-up question. Keep it coming because you need to get your questions answered to be certain so that we can bring your symptoms down. We'll talk more about it all, but I want to say hi to some people. Catherine Toomer, thanks for joining us here. The Real Jumeha is here. Rita, good to see you. Thanks for the hi and the flower. Fruit Loopy 422, that's Sarah. Good to see you here. It's been a while. It is Lila has joined us as well. And Becky Louise Gornall has joined us on Instagram. So please do feel free to type in your questions. That includes about my system, or if you come in the middle and you're like, wait, what's he talking about? Don't be shy. You got to know what we're talking about for this to be useful. Amy Blair, Lynn Slavensky, Karen Isaacs, and Dorisa, good to see you on YouTube. Dorisa actually said, hi, Dan and everyone, so I wanted to say hi to you. Scotty Styles, thank you for joining us on Instagram as well. Okay, let's get right to it. We're going to start looking at your questions and getting you answers. Chuck Brown Productions, good to see you, Terry, as well. All right, Amy Blair says, can you help me crush the doubt that more movement/exercise causes more inflammation/irritation, which causes more pain? This is what it feels like is happening. During exercise, I was fine, but woke up in the night in a ton of pain. Okay, so I'm going to weigh in on this, and I'll do this for you, Amy, but this is for everybody who's watching. And this is the way I want you to think about it, guys. When I'm answering a question, it's for everybody because I want to further your information. So, Amy, you let me know if I answered this to your satisfaction. But even the other people, let me know if I answered it to your satisfaction because you have questions as well. So, here is what I would say about doubt. In the doubt column, there are 3 steps to dealing with a doubt. It is observe, articulate, and counter. And by the way, in each column, there's very simple tasks, and I keep it nice and simple, actually because it is that simple. But this also works. So observe, articulate, and counter. What does that mean? Observing a doubt means to recognize you're having a doubt, because a lot of times people are having a thought that is a doubt, but they're not recognizing it as a doubt. They're thinking it's true. That's having a doubt. It's not recognizing the doubt. And Amy, I would say you're already observing this. You're aware that this is a doubt, but you're wanting to get past it. You've also done the second step, which is to articulate it, which is just what it sounds like, get it put into words. So she put it into words for us. That leaves us in a place where it's time to counter. Okay? So countering is where we use science, logic, or any other piece of evidence that is valid, and we bring it in to counter this. So I'm going to try a counter, Amy, but only you will know if that does the trick. And you might not even know right in the moment. We'll have to see. We might have to see how it sits. But there are many times, and I want to encourage Amy this and everybody else, there are many times where I will counter a doubt and it's just gone and it can't even come back because now you're thinking about it differently. And that's exactly what the doubt column is for, to finally change the thinking. So her question, can you help me crush the doubt that more movement and exercise causes more inflammation, irritation, which causes more pain? That's what it feels like is happening. Okay. And she said during exercise, she was fine, but she woke up in the night in a ton of pain. Okay. So one of the things that I love to do is to look at doubts more closely because at first glance, they paint a very pretty picture that they're right. But if you look close at any doubt, they're going to start to crumble. And Amy, I'm going to show you how. Here's one example. If exercise were actually the cause of more inflammation and irritation, it should have happened during the exercise. At the very least, it should have happened shortly after the exercise. It definitely should not have been the case that you were fine during the exercise, you were fine afterwards, and then you woke up in the middle of the night and had that pain. That's strike one against doubt for me. Now, I will say this, I say this all the time. It doesn't matter what I think, it matters what you think. However, I'm lending you that idea so that you can think about that. Now, let's go to some more ideas that can really push back against this doubt. Okay, so one thing is that exercise is actually good for us. So the idea that exercise would cause inflammation and irritation and be bad for us, it actually runs counter to evolution. We are designed to do these things. We're designed to be able to do these things. If our bodies were designed to get inflamed and irritated every time we exercise, that would be problematic with respect to evolution. Now, I do want to say one thing. You can get inflammation and irritation from exercising. However, this is very important. It is not because the exercise is a problem. It is also not because there's something physically going on. It is because you could have raised doubt when you exercise and move. And Amy, I would be completely shocked if that's not what is happening, if there is inflammation or irritation happening. I have my doubts about that, actually, whether there's actual inflammation or irritation or not. But I also want to respect what you're saying. You're the one who knows what the experience is like. So, one way to think about it is even if there is that, we have to call into question, is the cause the movement or the exercise? I can guarantee you it's not. It makes no sense that it would be. Um, Another good example of it is that exercise is supposed to give us endorphins, which make us feel good. And they're anything but inflammation. If anything, they get us going and make us feel good. Endorphins is a funny thing that really proves mind body experience, by the way. They say that endorphins come with exercise. That's not true. Endorphins come with happiness. Endorphins can happen whether you're exercising or whether you are listening to a great piece of music, or you just watched a movie you love and there was a great moment, or you see somebody that you love. That brings endorphins. Endorphins are from happiness, they're not from exercise. We mistake all of these things as if the body does all these things. So even though I'm using endorphins as a piece of evidence against your doubt, I want to say we got to look at the facts anyway. Endorphins do make us feel good, and exercise normally would. But would exercise make you feel good if you're worried and scared? No. So it is possible that there are changes in your body happening from the exercise. But the key here, Amy, is it is not because of the movement or the exercise. Now, I've said a lot there, and I want to say more because that's a lot to chew on. Let's start there, and I want you to follow up from that. Okay. And I want everybody to follow up from that if they have questions about what I said. Okay. All right. Sharon Kaufman, thanks for joining us on Instagram. Let's make sure I didn't miss anybody else. Okay. Scotty Styles says an enthusiastic hello. That's very Scotty Styles of you, which I always appreciate. Chuck Brown Productions, Terry says, hello, miss seeing you. Good to see you, Terry. So glad to have you here. Okay, we've got some questions coming in from Instagram. I'm going to get to those in a second, but I also want to make sure that I'm not behind on YouTube. Okay, we're going to get in with an Instagram question now. Okay, Fruit Loopy, this is Sarah, says, I think for me, it's depression, trauma, and self-doubt that have prevented me from getting anywhere. Do you know of people who improve those things, gain power, and finally improve? And then she says, and hi again, Dan. Thanks for remembering me. My pleasure. I remember you all because you're real people to me, especially when I have interactions with you. But I also think it's pretty important to be remembered. And so glad that was helpful. Now, here's what I'll say. Yes, I do know people who can improve from depression, trauma, anxiety. You didn't mention that, but I'm going to mention that as one of them as well. Self-doubt. In fact, that's exactly what the power column is for. And a lot of times people don't believe that change can happen. And why not? Well, there's multiple reasons, but I suppose one of the biggest is they've lived their whole lives that way. And Sarah, you've lived your whole life pretty much that way. I mean, maybe has gotten worse at certain periods, or maybe it's gotten worse progressively in certain ways. But the thing is, it all comes down to power. I was saying this in my groups. I'm going to share a little bit of my thoughts about my seminars and groups in a second. But I was sharing this in the groups I have. They're 3 days a week. They're Zoom calls with me. They're just like this, but we can get so much further in one sitting because like that discussion with Amy, she could have been talking back to me and telling me what was going on. We would get a lot further. So in one of the group discussions, we were talking about dreams. And, your dreams are actually wish fulfillments. But when you are depressed or you've had a lot of trauma, or you're anxious, or you have a lot of self-doubt, you're not even allowed to get your wishes fulfilled even in your dreams. I used to wonder about this because I had dreams and I would think, why can't I get what I want? Someone would make me mad and I couldn't retaliate, just like in life. Uh, I was joking about this in group that maybe it's TMI, but I would have dreams where I was interested in some woman and could not take action. There was a lot of passivity and not powerful feelings, and they were all coming out in my dreams. Now, when I got past the back pain and I started to feel powerful, even my dreams started to change. Let me actually take that comment down. Okay, so my dreams started to change. Your dreams are a reflection of your power. So, Sarah, I want to guarantee you, you can change this. What we need to do, though, is get you past what I call level 3 doubt. There are 3 levels of doubt. Level 1 doubt is this a mind body experience or not? And a lot of people come to me for that. But many come and they're already past that. I know it's not mind body, but I still am just not getting better. And why not? Well, each one of these levels of doubt is one of the reasons for roadblocks. Level 2 doubt is I believe it's mind body, but my issue is harder to get past. In a way, Sarah, that's part of what you have going right here. You think that depression and trauma and these self-doubts are going to be harder to get past. That's a little bit of level 2 doubt. However, it's mostly level 3 doubt, which is there anything about me that's going to prevent me from getting better? And that's really what you're saying. Those are just doubts. However, I need to counter them effectively, and I need to show you why the power column can open the door to this changing. And a lot of that would come through actual power column work. So let me shift over to the power column and talk about the tasks there. In the power column, we work on something called the core narrative. The core narrative is the story of your suffering self. We each have different iterations of and different identities, I guess I would say, of who we are. But we have a story, a coherent story that's always who we are, about how we've suffered. The thing is, we don't usually know it so well. So the core narrative is something that gets this put into words, very stark words, and it's usually pretty extreme, that gets people to a place where they can actually see how they've suffered. And they start to empathize with themselves for the first time. Usually there's a big mourning process with that. Takes a couple months usually when you really hit on the core narrative. It hurts worse than anything. The core narrative should either make you really angry or really sad or both. But then you get to process the loss. You get to process the suffering. And once you do that, it opens the door to you deciding, you know what, I'm going to live in alignment with myself. So, Sarah, one thing I know, I mean this as good news, actually, and I definitely don't mean it as an insult, but I know from what you're saying that you are not living in alignment with yourself yet. And if you're thinking, well, I've been working at this for a long time and I don't think I can, I want to encourage you. Yes, you can. I think that we may need to dig in there a little bit more and figure out what's holding you back from the power. What's holding you back maybe from seeing what happened to you and being able to fully empathize with yourself. One thing I remember about you, Sarah, I hope you don't mind my sharing, but you're not super empathic to yourself. I mean this very lovingly, but you're not. And so many people aren't. In fact, so many mind body sufferers aren't. The vast majority of us are not. I wasn't. I thought I was. I thought I liked myself. But when I really looked at it, I was so unempathic to myself before, and I'm just not anymore. So this can change. I think it will change, and I can help you with it. If you want to interface in some way, I can give you some pointers on where to go from there. Okay? Let me know if I answered that to your satisfaction. Okay, Lynn Slemensky, good to see you here. She says, hi, will your book come in audio format? It absolutely will. There's going to be a lag on the audio from getting it out in written book form because I have to record it. And of course, I have to finish the book before I'm comfortable recording it. So that's coming soon. I'm really in the thick of getting towards the end of the edit, hoping to have the book out to you in about 2 months. The audio format would probably come about a month later. Okay, I'll keep you posted. Oh, by the way, if people want to be updated on the book, or I actually announced in my newsletter, did I announce it this week or am I announcing this week? I forget. We are going to be releasing new podcast episodes. It's time. And I'm ready to get back to it, partly because I'm finishing up the book. But I want to bring new content to you guys. Some of it will be premium content. Some of it will be free. And we're figuring out the details of that. But if you want to find out about those details, join my newsletter on my website, www.crushingdoubt.org. That's also where you can join those groups, by the way. But let me back up and say one thing about that. On my website, there's lots of different resources, but the two main resources that you're going to find until the book's there are my teaching seminars, which are they're pre-recorded, and they're 12 hours of me talking about. Well, it's actually not just me talking. There's also some Q&As of the people who attended those seminars. But I talk about all of the mind body world. How can you understand, why does this person say this and why does this person say this, and how do I understand these seeming contradictions? Because those are the kinds of things that will keep you doubting. I teach you everything you need to know about the mind body experience, how it all fits together, and then I teach my system, the columns. It's an incredibly helpful resource. You can get it whenever. You can get it in the middle of the night if you're like, I need to be working on something. Boom, there it is. It's right there for you. When I initially did these seminars, though, what I found is I taught people what I wanted to teach them, and they had the right information, but a lot of them needed help implementing it on a more regular basis. That is what the groups are for. So, of course, you can also come to them just to get your questions answered, but they are a way to implement this column system. So they're Zoom calls. You can come on camera or not. You can talk. You can type things in the chat. And I answer the questions and I help smooth out the process of what you need to do in relation to your columns. And then I'll make recommendations based on what you're saying. Where are you at with it? Okay. All right. Karen Isaac says, when I have a bad day with sniffles, that's her latest symptom, I ignore as best I can. You suggested I think of what I'm irritated about. I often forget. I remain annoyed at the symptom. No surprise, when I took a walk, I felt fine. Okay. So Karen, doubt wants to keep you from power. And one of the ways it keeps you from power is forgetting. Just, oops, I can't keep track of that, right? It also keeps you out of power by getting you annoyed with the symptom. I am completely empathic to you being annoyed at the symptom. That's what symptoms do. They annoy us all. But when we let them annoy us enough where that becomes the main focus, then they win in a way. And I'm not saying that to blame you, but I just want you to come back and fight it again. And actually, here's the way to do it, Karen. You don't have to fight it directly. What I want you to do is just focus on power. You say, I suggested think of what you're irritated about. That would be an emotions column intervention. That's you looking for what's the emotion that's leading to this. And we've said it is an emotions column symptom, the onsets and upticks of it. However, it's also a recurrent low-level symptom. And that's indicative of the power column. You're knocking on the door of power. The dreams that you're having lately that are coming to the surface even more, they're a sign that you're knocking on the door to power. That frequently happens. Sarah, your questions on Instagram, your questions to me are showing that you're on the verge of power also. You just don't believe you can do it, but you can. You wouldn't be asking these questions if you weren't getting ready for it. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, Karen Isaacs then said, thank you for bringing up dream comment. As you know, I love this topic. I think it's a really great topic, and I'm glad you loved it in group. Figured you'd love it here, but I'm going to do a podcast on it as well. It's really interesting because once I started to have power, I could do all kinds of things. I used to have dreams where I couldn't even throw like a baseball. I would try to throw it, and it just wouldn't go anywhere. Couldn't get any power into it. And once I felt powerful, I can launch the ball in dreams. I can do whatever I want. I can even change my dreams in lots of ways. So more on that topic soon. Okay. Scotty Styles says, this week I countered doubts that were coming up around a symptom relapse triggered by the gym. I sent myself cognitive messages of safety that crushed any doubt that I may be physically injured. Beautiful. Classic conditioned response. I knew it was TMS, which is what Sarno called this, tension myositis syndrome. Many names for mind body issues, but that was his. And had to tell myself that I, quote, didn't do too much at the gym. Okay, so Scotty's comment relates to what Amy was saying. We all have these physical triggers in the environment where we believe, oh my God, what did I do? Is this going to harm me? And if we just sat there, the ironic thing is if we just sat there, you know what we would think? Is sitting here too long going to harm me? So we get a trigger no matter what we do. If you're sitting still or if you're exercising, we can get these triggers. It's so important to fight the doubt. Scotty, you're doing a great job doing it. Oh, you have more to say about it. Good. All right. Further evidence is that this symptom is a mirror image on the other side of the body from where it first took place. Wow. Yes, only the brain is smart enough to know that. Then he said, writing an evidence list helped to conquer my doubts as well. Right. The, ultimately, when we're having these discussions with ourselves, that's what it is. It's self talk. The columns, though, structure how that self talk can go. They structure where do we need to be thinking about these things? How can we have confidence that we're going to get better? What should we be doing in that self talk? That's part of what the columns are for. They're a very organizing system. They're also a kind of a detective system that can help you figure out what's going on with symptoms. They're also obviously a system that can help you get rid of the symptoms. And the other thing about the columns is they're actually kind of a philosophy. They're like a philosophy of life. And one of the reasons I say that is I don't want anyone to think this is actually so much work. Once you really know the columns, it's less work. It's a way of thinking that's just kind of automatic. I think in columns, and not even in a way that is bothersome to me or cumbersome or anything. It's actually very relieving to me. Okay, Jay Plant, good to see you here. It's been a while. Gomez Vibes, good to see you here again as well. Okay. Sarah, you said, thank you, Dan. That was so encouraging. I think I have been embracing my truth more, but still not fully. It's not easy to do, Sarah. It's not. It's the hardest thing to do, but you can do it. And we all can do it. And the power column work can really help you with it. So if you want to revisit that with me in some way, you can send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.org. Obviously, you can come back to the groups at any time. Um, just don't stop. The only way we lose is if doubt gets us to stop working at this. The columns to me have provided the absolute full answer. I haven't needed anything else, and I have not had any back pain symptoms or really any symptoms to speak of except for one flare up that happened with a particularly bad emotional onset and a physical trigger together. Really, but I'm past that as well. So I've gotten everything I need with this. You can too. You don't need anything else. We just need to implement it. But I'm glad that was encouraging. There's not a chance in hell you can't do this. And I've seen people radically change. I feel radically different. You know, I used to be afraid of public speaking. I don't care anymore. I really don't. I actually love it. And one of the reasons I love it is I'm powerful now. But I used to get up there and be like, I hope they don't see I'm not powerful. It was really not fun. So I have changed radically, and I can tell you all about it if that would be more encouraging. Okay? Keep up the good work, Sarah. I'm proud of you. And thanks for coming back to talk about it. Dave O'Brien, thanks for joining us here. All right. It is Lila. I will be with you in a second on Instagram. I've got a couple questions on YouTube I got to get to. Let me make sure I don't miss anyone. It is a strong bent of mine to not miss anybody because the thing is, we are all, most of us who have these issues are trauma survivors, and getting passed over and not seen, that doesn't feel good. So if that does ever happen, please know I did not mean that. And know that I value you. So give me a heads up. Hey, you missed my question, and I will get to it. Okay, be gone. It is good to see you here. That is Bunny. Hi, Dan. Looking forward to attending my first group tomorrow. I look forward to it, Bunny. It's going to be great. And I love orienting people to these things and getting to work. I see you do have a question. Do you think excessive screen time can cause damage to the eyes, or if it's what you're thinking while using screens that can cause harm? Okay, great question. I can totally relate to this, by the way, because I've been staring at a screen almost all day editing. So I haven't had damage or pain, but I have had eye fatigue. And I've sometimes wondered how much of this is mind body, how much of this is a real thing. And of course, doubt wants me to worry, is there damage? There's no damage, none whatsoever. You cannot damage your eyes from staring at the screen. You can damage your eyes if you stare at the sun. The sun is very bright, so don't stare at that for more than a minute or two. But generally speaking, it's not easy to damage eyes, the body. I mean, evolution has been working for millions of years to make us strong. And we are pretty strong. In fact, we're very strong. So you can't damage the eyes. However, this idea of what you're thinking while you're using the screens, that's huge. It's just what I said to Amy about the exercising. She can't harm herself or cause inflammation from the actual exercising. But if she's believing that it could and she's worried, that could cause it. Our beliefs are incredibly powerful. I often say it does not matter what you do. It matters what you're thinking while you do it, which is, I think, why you asked the question, Bunny. So 100%. If you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, so listen, I'm in my 40s. In my 40s, anybody in their 40s knows you're supposed to start having problems reading close up. That's what they say. Um, and I did in certain ways, but it really comes and goes. It's pretty weird. And it depends on what I'm thinking about. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm old now. Oh, it's all downhill from here. Oh, I'm fading. Or if you're thinking it's going to damage my eyes, well, that's going to lend itself to you having the experience of it. Our minds are so strong and all of the physical pathways are there that it can alter experience in all sorts of ways. So if you're having any kind of symptoms, it's definitely not damage, but it's probably related to what you're thinking. So then I would want to get it articulated. What are you thinking? Because then we can counter it. Buddy, let me know if I answered your question to your satisfaction. Okay. All right. Susie Karen's good to see you here. All right. Amy Blair said, thanks, Dr. Dan. Makes sense. So, how do you go from understanding and believing that exercise movement doesn't cause pain to having no pain? I believe what you're saying, yet am in pain still. So, let me ask you this, Amy. Again, this is where within a group, we could get so far because we could have a whole conversation about this. I'm not trying to sell the groups. I'm just trying to show the difference, between them. But at the same time, I really think the groups are incredibly valuable. They're also such a great group of people. I love sitting with them. They ask great questions. We do great work. So if you're interested, do let me know. Send me an email at dan@crushingdoubt.org if you have questions about it. So, Amy, one question I would have here is, are you saying that you already believed it coming into this Q&A well before, but you're still having some pain? Or are you saying, okay, I totally believe you now, but I'm still having pain? They're two different questions, because if you finally kind of crushed it out right now, I encourage you to give it some time to settle in and give you a full sense that you do believe that and you're set. Okay, so give it some time. If, on the other hand, you really already knew that, and I was saying something that just bolstered what you already thought, and you're still having pain, there's a couple of things I would be checking out. One is, how deeply do you believe it? How deeply? Not just do you believe it, because doubt is very, very slippery. It can hang around with just a little bit. So you could be like, yeah, I believe it 99%. That's never good enough for me, because you know why? That 1%, that'll get you. This is why I always encourage people, when you go to a doctor, including a mind body doctor, or maybe especially a mind body doctor, and they say, I'm 99% sure this is nothing. Or let's say in the case of a mind body doctor, I'm 99% sure this is a mind body issue. A huge amount of the patient population or suffering population is going to hear you are 1% not sure. So the small percentages can make a big difference. The very first place I would look, Amy, is still at doubt. I would say, wait, do we really have this fully licked? Let's look at it. Is there some way that you are still doubting that? The next place I would look, if you are totally certain you don't have that doubt, is what's the next doubt? There's another doubt underneath it. For example, it could be, I'm not saying this is the case, but I'm just giving an example. It could be that you know that exercising doesn't cause the pain, but you don't believe that you're going to be capable of implementing this anyway. And that, your mind is just going to worry about it and keep it up. Or you may think, I don't know if I can understand this well enough to do it. Or you could think, yeah, okay, fine, it wasn't exercise, but per se, but maybe it was something I did that was wrong in the exercise. Maybe it was a specific thing. So hopefully what I'm showing you, Amy, is there's many doubts underneath doubts. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying it to overwhelm anyone, because you kill one doubt and all the doubt starts to shrink. And if you do it again, it shrinks even more. And you want to keep doing that. I want you to not focus so much on what I call results-oriented thinking, which is, do I have the symptom or not? Totally understandable that you would go there. I want you to focus instead, though, on process-oriented thinking, which is, am I working to change my thinking? And that's where you just focus on doubt. You don't focus on symptoms. I get why you would. Everybody doesn't want to have the symptoms. But focus on the process. Focus on, am I beating doubt? What I hear in this is some doubt. You're saying, okay, I believe you, but I really have doubt it's going to go away anyway. There's some form of that. So I would just go to the next doubt. Now, Amy, let me know if that makes sense to you and we'll go from there. Okay? All right. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. A couple more questions on Instagram. Rana Sanbul, good to see you here. Thanks for saying hi, Susie. Okay, Jay Plant says, Dan, I haven't been here in a while because I'm playing pickleball Thursday evenings. I hear that's a great sport. I actually haven't tried it yet. The first night I went out, had sensations popping up all over my back. Just kept giving myself messages of safety. Let me see if you said anything else. Okay, so first of all, I'm glad you're giving yourself messages of safety because one of the jobs that you guys all will have is good self-talk. Now, my next question would be, or my question would be, since I haven't asked the first question, is did it work? Because I often say to people, you can tell yourself you're safe, but if you don't believe it, you're not. However, if you don't believe it, you can get in there and start to ask questions. Why don't I believe it? So, my question to you, did it work for you? Now, if it did, great, because that's really the main thing we have to do. The columns are great. They each do certain things. But if you had to do one thing and one thing alone, it's keep bringing down doubt. Keep a wall up against doubt. Doubt is the thing that makes us have such a struggle. And the columns, again, they're all valuable. But if you had to do one thing, fight against doubt. So my question to you is, did it work? And if it didn't work so much, let's look at it. But you're doing the work. And by the way, this fits with what we were saying about Amy and a few others. When you do something physical in the environment, it's naturally going to make your mind, your mind's aware you're doing it. And so doubt is going to try to co-opt anything that's going on. So it tried to co-opt it. Oh, you're playing pickleball? Oh, maybe you have some back issues. Eventually, I think you'll actually, and this happens for many people, you'll come to laugh at the symptoms and they will also go away. Easy to laugh at them when they can go away, hard to laugh at them when they don't. But let's keep working on it. Let me know how that went either today, or you can come back, or you can send me an email, whatever you want to do. Okay. All right. Dorisa said, I feel like I'm on a major verge of power. That's exciting. However, I felt great today, and then one symptom popped up that is a recurring symptom. I believe that it will go, but then it pops up again. Okay, so Dorisa, recurring symptoms are notorious for coming up when you're getting close to power. And the reason for that is doubt knows that it got pretty far with one particular symptom. It's going to go back to the well if it thinks it can get you off of power. So what I want you to do is think this. I'm not buying it, doubt. Nope. This is about power. And my job is to ignore you and keep moving towards power. Now, if something comes up, if the symptom starts going up, we can analyze why. What's the specific thing going on? What was the specific emotional thing going on that led to that uptick? But don't worry about that too much because it usually doesn't happen that way. Usually when you push through against power and you ignore doubt, there usually isn't an emotions column event that leads to an onset or an uptick. Doubt wants you to think there might be so that you won't move forward. And it's kind of like calling somebody's bluff. It's like a bad poker player, or it's like a bully on the playground. You tell it you're not going to put up with it, and it's over. That's it. So you're close to power. Go get it. You do not need to be afraid. Nothing bad is going to happen. I promise you. No matter what symptoms that might go on, the columns have you covered. We'll know what to do about it. Teresa said, I don't believe this is an emotional issue. I don't think so either at all. This is a doubt issue about power. And you're right. You said, I think it's just my brain fighting back. Good. You've got the right understanding. So then here's what you do. Ignore the doubt and go grab the power. You deserve it. Go get it. Okay? Good work. All right. Chris Atwater says, self-empathy. Oh, you know what? I did miss someone. I got to go back. It's Lila. I missed you. I'm back to you. Hold on. Chris, I'm going to get to you in a second. I can't leave Lila hanging like that. Okay. She says, hi, Dan. I think my biggest roadblock is that my chronic symptom, muscle twitches in random parts of my body at random times, changes in intensity, could also be CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome. That's the acronym. I think all of these things are just mind body. And I mean that is good news. And so then I go down the rabbit hole of that label and supplements and on and on. I'm constantly trying to fix it. So let me encourage you guys of one thing. Do not buy into labels. These labels are all labels that were created by people who don't understand mind-body conditions. So that would be like believing a 4-year-old about what to do to build a rocket ship. They don't know. So I will say this. This is a controversial topic, and some people who have gotten this diagnosis may even get mad at me about this, but we have to have a real discussion about it. I'm not meaning anything insulting, but chronic fatigue syndrome is a mind-body equivalent. It's real and it's devastating sometimes. And the feelings and the sensations are real, and changes in the body are real. But this can be cured like anything else. So I talked about the levels of doubt. This would be a level 2 doubt. My symptom is different than others. Don't go down the rabbit hole. When I say when I talk to people about going to doctors, I say put on your doubt armor. What I mean by that is that you are gonna have the doctor's gonna say some nonsense. It happens every time. I'm not saying they're all bad or that they'll say all nonsense, and they can be trusted for certain things, especially life and death stuff. But they're also gonna say some things that are gonna spike your doubt. Diagnoses can spike doubt too. If I had one recommendation to give to people who were getting a diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome or CRPS, I would tell them, do not buy into this diagnosis. It is all mind body, nothing else. Keep that doubt down. So it's Lila. Did you say anything else? I think that's it. Let me know if I answered your question to your satisfaction. Sorry for the delay, but I am glad that I backtracked. Okay. All right. Jay Plant says, yes, so good. It did work. That's great. Keep up the good work. That's all you need to do. In many ways, it's that simple. Keep a wall up against doubt, and it never gets very far. Okay? All right, Chris, thank you for patience. Self-empathy is tough to me on 2 levels. One, I was basically taught it takes a big man to cry, but it takes a bigger man to laugh at that man. I don't like that. I don't like that you were taught that. I don't like society teaching that. 2, you are always wrong and should feel guilty for it. That is definitely, those are some tough things, Chris. But I do want to encourage you. This is similar to what I was saying to Sarah. I think you have some strong beliefs that you can't change. And I totally get that. And listen, I'm hoping this will be a helpful piece of information. I went to over 20 years of therapy trying to change. But the way therapy tends to do things, the therapy world, they tend to focus on insight, just learn about it and then accept who you are. They don't practice showing you how to believe you can change. They also don't tell you how to change. And a lot of times they don't know how to change. They don't know how to get you to change, or how they don't even know how to get themselves to change. Some of them don't even believe that change is really possible. They believe that insight is possible and that there's some changes, but it's very limited compared to the power column. So I really want to encourage you, Chris. The power column is a different thing. I have changed much more radically with my own power column work and the things that led to the power column than I did in 20 years of therapy and everything I tried before. And it was because I finally understood myself. So these statements that you're saying, they're the opposite of self-empathy, which I'm sure you know. But what they show is you don't even really know how to empathize with yourself. You don't know your own story in an empathic way. You know the facts, but you're not really empathizing with yourself yet. So I will also counter. You were taught it takes a big man to cry, but a bigger man to laugh at that man. That second man who laughs at that man is a puny weakling. And you've got to be strong about this. You all do. We all do. I do too. We can't let the idea that that person's stronger infiltrate what we actually do and think. We're going to get you to self-empathy, Chris, but the first thing we need to do is to help you see you haven't had it. And we need to do that through describing your story to you. That's that core narrative work. Okay? You can do this. You're having doubts that are trying to keep you from power, similar to what Dorisa was saying. You can get there. Let's work on it. Okay? Hang in there. Okay. Jane Smith says, hi, Dr. Dan. Sorry, we'll have to catch catch the replay. We'll see you next week. Thanks again for being here for us. Thank you for saying hi, Jane. Catch the replay. Put your questions in there. You can email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org. You can also go to my website if you want to join the member groups and come see me, www.crushingdoubt.org, or send me an email to ask questions about it. Lots of ways to interface with me, and the book will add to that. Oh, Chris has another comment here. He says, nice job, Scotty. I do the same. I tell myself there is nothing physically wrong with me. Still working on some of the mental issues, though. I'm trying to work the emotions and doubt column to get power. Yeah, Chris, the key for you right now is power, and we are going to get there. By the way, power is the hardest to achieve. There's lots of things that happen in the mind body community where people talk about book cures and getting better very fast. That doesn't happen for everybody. That usually happens when you have a certain doubt and it gets totally nailed and then it goes away. Or you have an emotions column event experience and you get in touch with that emotion, boom, it's gone. Power column symptoms and when doubts are really running rampant, those are the things that perpetuate things. And that's why I've come to specialize in this and share those ideas. All right. Begone says, now that my eyes are dry, I definitely think things like I shouldn't go on screens very long. It's going to make my eyes worse. Before this happened while on screens, I would think things like, I need to get off screen social media. I'm being unproductive. Okay. So lots of ways that, your mind was trying to convince you to get off computers, but it all depends on the specifics of what you're thinking. Here's a counter that you can try. Dry eye or not, there's absolutely no difference. I mean, these screens are not sucking the liquid out of your eyes. In fact, what is? It doesn't make any sense that there is anything that's taking the liquid out of your eyes or the fluid, except for your mind. Your mind can make you cry, and it can also make those tears recede and be like, no, I'm not coming out at all. As I've said to you, a lot of times dry eyes are related to issues of self-empathy because you can't cry for yourself. And I think that is 100% what's going on, but I need to convince you. We'll talk about it tomorrow in group and we'll see where things go from there. Okay. But fight the doubt. Okay. Catherine Toomer, thank you for your patience. Let me get to your questions here. Hi, Dr. Dan. I've been having reappearance of a few of my typical symptoms, nausea, joint pain at night. I haven't had the chronic nausea in a very long time. It is not constant, and I know it will not last, but why? I think it relates to feeling overwhelmed, that I really won't be able to get beyond my OCD symptoms before I die, and that these symptoms make me less of a full human being, less able to really be present to life and my loved ones. I'm going to read the rest, but I do have a thought, and it is about doubt coming in relation to power. So I will get back to that in a second. SSRI drugs helped me, but really I don't want to go there again. And really I have been making good gains, but all mixed in with lots of mental pain. Thanks for listening. I appreciate anything you have to say. Okay. So, this is happening, Catherine, because you are on the verge of a power breakthrough. And I know this because I know your trajectory. You've brought down doubt quite a bit. You've done some good emotions column work, so you know these things. It could be that there was some kind of emotional onset that led to that initial nausea, but now it has the feel of maybe I can't be powerful because you're saying things to yourself like I might be less of a full human being. I'm less able to be present. These are all depowered experiences. So, first of all, I want to encourage you. You make sense and your symptoms make sense. Then I want to encourage you. The columns can make any symptom go away. You are not stuck with anything. You don't need SSRIs or anything else to do this. But what you, I think, could really benefit from is let's get to some power column work. And let's think about what's happening now, because symptoms are always now. Why do they happen now? What's happening in your life that is the possibility of becoming powerful? And this idea of mortality and whether you can do it before you die, I think actually in many ways the power column issue is you're afraid to do it before you die, because that would be being powerful. And there's nowhere else to run now. You're here. I mean, that is a good thing. You are here at the point where you're about to break through. I can feel it. Now, it doesn't matter what I think, it matters what you think, but let's talk about it, okay? All right. Tide Sign NY, thank you for joining us here. Let's see. Chuck Brown Productions says, how does one authentically tell themselves that they are safe and believe it? Still struggling with this. Okay, so words don't do it. The way to do it is you've got to understand how you've been unsafe and how you can become safe. I'll give you an example of this, Terry, but this may or may not apply to you. Actually, hold on. Jay Plan had a comment. She said, if to you, actually, to Terry, if you truly believe in mind body, then you're safe because there's nothing structurally wrong. So that's true in terms of the mind body experience, but there's different ways we could feel unsafe. If you feel interpersonally unsafe or unsafe in a power sort of way, we got to do power column work. If you feel unsafe in the way that Jay Plan is talking about, in the doubt column way, then yes, we got to work on that full belief. The thing is, you can believe these things, but you can't fake it. So we have to ask the question, why don't you believe it? And I'm going to give you an example. This is a power column example. I used to not feel safe because I felt that if somebody were aggressive with me, I wouldn't defend myself. And I knew it. And the truth is, I wouldn't. And why not? Because I didn't know how I had suffered. I wasn't empathic to myself. I wasn't in my own corner. And so I was pretty unprotected. But as soon as I figured out what my story was and started to care about it and got in my own corner, I felt much safer. So that's one way to feel more safe. J Plan is saying another. What we need to do is ask the question, why do you not feel safe? You can't skip to believing it. That won't work, which of course you know. That's exactly what you're saying, right? Let's back up. Let's find out why you don't feel safe and go from there. Okay. And we can talk more about it as needed. Do let me know and get in contact as needed. It is Lila that says, thank you. It is my pleasure. I'm very glad we went back to that. Okay. Tide Sign New York says, it's in your head. I don't actually know what that was in reference to, but I do want to say, and I guess I would want to get more information from you about what you mean by that. But I do want to encourage you, you all, that the things that are in our heads become real in the body. So the term psychosomatic, for example, it often rubs people the wrong way because it makes them think, oh, you're making it up. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, by the way. But I just want to make sure that we all know this, that even if something is going on in your head, the way I think about it is it's not in your head, it's from your head. So it starts here. So much does, but then it becomes real in the body. Okay. Now, Catherine Toomer says, I didn't even mention the word doubt. I think it's all about doubt in power column, maybe several kinds of doubt. Yes, I think there is doubt pulling you back from the power column. Jennifer Rosenberg, thanks for joining here. You're coming in just at the end of this Q&A, but if you do have questions, you can always put them in the comments below. You can also come back next week. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I shouldn't say every Thursday, but most Thursdays, and I let people know when I'm out. But the whole idea here is to get your questions answered. If you don't get your questions answered, you end up thinking the same things. And if you think the same things, your body responds in the same way. So I'm here. It has been a pleasure. Dorisa said, thank you for doing this Q&A. It is my pleasure. One of the great things about the week is being here with you guys and knowing that I'm helping answer these questions. I'm giving what I wished I had had. And one of them is this kind of resource. Because back then it was all go to a therapist who specializes in this, nothing else. We need things like this where we can actually ask these questions. If you do want to come to my groups, though, where we can get even further with them, lots of different questions, and I can give specific advice and you can see those interactions, you can join on my website, www.crushingdoubt.org. You can send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.org, with questions. And I look forward to next week, guys. It is a pleasure as always, and I will see you soon. Take care till then.